to be, there's no more projector. So no more stopping in the middle of class or, and okay, what's my plan B? Got to come up with one on the fly because your projector bulb burns out. You have multi-points of touch. You can have up to 10 points of touch at one time on the board. If you want to get up here and test the theory and have 10 of your students come up and try it out, more power to you. But that is what ViewSonic has shared. There is software that's built into the board itself. You can use your pen or your finger, just to show you very quickly. So I have enabled my pen tool. I can come over here and I can use the pen, sliding it over to this side. I haven't touched anything, and I can change it up. This is a piece of plastic. So there is no technology in this pen whatsoever, so if it happens to grow legs, hops away somehow miraculously, you can still conduct and instruct. All right? One thing to keep in mind, this is magnetic. So there is, that's a fun thing to show. That isn't that obvious looking at the board. Calibration. So remember, anytime with your old Promethean active boards, if somebody would move their desk and the ceiling would shake and then you'd have to recalibrate, the board is self-calibrating, so you will not have to do that with this board. You can annotate over the top layer on the board. You can also embed in your annotation, so Stephanie's going to take you into that in a little bit. All right. Moving through. Cleaning and care. So the biggest tip that I can give to you, there's a lot of stuff in the Module 1 course. So there was a 1-hour prerequisite requirement that the district had. And just keep in mind that if you haven't gotten to that yet, we're not here to judge by all means, but we do know that they are checking off that every teacher that's received a board has completed that. So I did want to share that information. Within that Module 1, there's a lot of resources, and one of the things they have in there is a video on how to clean and all these good tips. The biggest one you need to know is this. The recommendation for the liquid that you use is a Windex or some kind of off-brand multi-purpose cleaner. The yellow Windex is what they recommend with that extra antibacterial solvent solution chemical in it. And you never want to spray directly on the board itself. Always spray on a soft cloth. So this is, microfiber. And then clean the board with the spray on here. Because over time, the liquid can drip down into the bezel here behind, and it can actually corrode into, so it's best practice, all right? Okay. So we talked about the difference between the pen and the finger, so let's talk about the remote for a little bit. So everyone received a pen and a remote, and with this, there is a guide in Module 1 that's been already uploaded that basically points out what every single button on the remote can do. I will not bore you to tears by going through that document with you today, just know that it's in there if you haven't run across it just yet. All right, so the biggest couple of things, you have a channel up and down button. This is a presentation mouse. So you can use this, and Stephanie and I actually developed a PowerPoint in Microsoft PowerPoint, and we put it on a thumb drive, and we carry it from school to school to school while we're doing these trainings. And it's plugged into one of these USB ports on the front of the board. She'll show you how to pull your files in and do all this. I don't want to steal her thunder, but with that said, this is a PowerPoint viewer, so it's not PowerPoint that we're in. This is the board, has some software built into it, and Word and PowerPoint, they have those viewers within it. And so I'm able to toggle using my remote. I can also come up here, obviously, and use my arrows on the board. Okay? We talked about points of touch. With the remote, the other thing to share with you is the freeze function, which is the S mode button. So with this, it's a precarious little button. If you press and hold it for too long, it turns the feature on, off, on, off, on, off. It's a quick, press quick, one and done. So I'll use my pointer finger, and if you look,
I hear a miss every time.
It does have a slight delay, so sometimes you're like, oh, is it happening? It took me a while to perfect my freezing, so to speak. I'm showing you on the remote how to freeze. Stephanie will show you how you can do it from one of the side toolbars. All right? Other tip, need to be about within 10 feet of the board in order for it to work. Okay? So let's talk about the 2 cables that you received today. If you have not, your ITT is going to be distributing these. Yours are black. We just happen, these are the ones we have for display, just to share from training to training. So these are going to be the 2 cords that you will need to connect your Chromebook so that you can view your Chromebook screen on your panel. So the district has purchased these and they have provided them to you so that you can do that, which is awesome. So when your panel is installed, they go ahead and they connect all those connections that it's supposed to have. There's some extenuating circumstances. I won't get into the details why. You know, that may not have occurred, but that is the standard. The side of the board is where all the extra ports are located. So what we've done for you today, because of this training, when you get a chance, go back to your board and you can look on the side, but you'll see different ports like this. So the HDMI cable is when you plug your Chromebook in on one end and then the other into the board, this is what's going to display the image on the panel screen. It's also what's going to bring in your media sound, so audio files and video files. This is what will allow, if you're playing it through your Chromebook, this will allow the sound to come out of the panel speakers. Okay? This cable, you actually have one of each of these that came with your desktop computer, right? That's connected. This is one, it's a USB. The other end is kind of a squared off. It's a USB 2.0. And this is what makes your Chromebook able to be driven or touched when you connect it. So if you've only connected this cable to your Chromebook and then to the panel, and you're touching and you're like, it's not working, this is the missing piece. So there's 2 of these touch ports on the side. You've got one cable already connected to your desktop. This one is so that you can do the same when you toggle over, and I'll show you that in a second. But when you select and you're viewing your Chromebook up on the panel, it's going to allow you to drive and touch, just like you would if it were the desktop. So let's talk about the these are your buttons on the front of the keypad. You start off with 3 USB ports. So this is where we plugged our flash drive in. To the left of that, you'll see that there is a volume up and a volume down. Your remote has the same here. So you can either control volume while you're up at the board, or you can take this with you and control it from anywhere in your classroom. Moving down the row, we're going to skip the settings. I'm going to jump to number 3, and it looks like an undo button, and it's kind of the same. It takes you back a step. Any of you, the board itself is built on an Android platform. So if you have an Android phone, or if you have an Android tablet and you're kind of accustomed to it a little bit with your Chromebook, this is gonna feel a little more familiar to you. But this basically, just to kind of give you a point of reference, it's gonna take you into the previous function or app that you were in. So that's kind of that in very quick version. I'm gonna skip the house. I'm gonna jump over to the power button. So if I quickly need to redirect the focus back on me and not on the board, I can press it once to black out the screen. This is kind of if I'm going to a meeting or I'm going to eat lunch or something short periods of time, that's, you don't have to shut your board completely down. However, at the end of the day, the recommendation is that you do more of a complete shutdown of the board. And so I can press the same button and hold for about 7 seconds, a few seconds. This pops up. I can click OK and it starts the process, or you can let it run down. I'm going to hit cancel because I don't want to delay moving through our presentation.
Can I ask a question about the power button?
Absolutely.
So sometimes I press the power button and the OK and stuff comes up, but when they touch it, it comes back on.
Right.
Why is that?
It just undoes, I mean,
When you shut
Like,
it down all the way, yeah, it's just they're powering it back on.
No, but they don't even touch the power button. They touch the screen. The kids sometimes touch
while
the screen and
it's,
it comes
while
back
it's
on.
shutting down.
No,
That's
it's all the way shut down.
Oh, yeah, it shouldn't do that.
Uh,
I gotta see that.
All right.
That's weird.
No, it only
I'm not
does-
saying it doesn't happen.
It only does that for me.
No, it
if I
should do
just
it.
Touch it.
Right, when you do it
time,
one.
it counters.
While it's going through the process of shutting down?
No,
Well,
she's
not
talking
even
about like
shutting
when you
down,
do the
just when you
flag.
just tap it one time.
Yeah.
And then
So
you
like
go-
this?
And you go back and touch it, comes back.
Yeah.
But
So
if
this
it
isn't-
shuts all the way down.
This isn't shut down, this is just paused.
So if I press the power button on the remote one time, it doesn't shut it down.
Correct.
Yes.
So I have to press it twice on the remote.
You have
Yeah,
to
hold
press,
it down.
you have to press until the,
Oh, I gotta hold it down.
hold it down
Oh,
until
so I
the,
haven't been cutting it off. Okay.
that's what we're here for. We're working it out together. Yep. Problem solved.
Got you.
Love it. All right. So just a point of, somebody had asked, so if I'm pointing my remote, where's the best place to point it? This to the left of the power button, you can't see it in here, but this is actually number 8 up there. That's the remote sensor, just to give you a point of reference. So I want everyone to, I know you're all, it's the end of the day, you're almost there, but I want you to pretend like you're in your family rooms in front of your TVs and just think in terms of, you have options, right? So connected to your TV could be a satellite or cable box so you can watch TV, right? You also might have something like a Amazon Fire Stick, an Apple TV, Chromecast. There's so many these days, they're hard to keep up with, right? So a streaming media player, right? That's plugged in possibly. You could have a gaming console, PS4, Xbox, Wii, yeah, it just depends on if you can't get away from it. All right, so you have options, right? And then maybe you have a Blu-ray player. So think in terms of that technology and how, what you want to display on your TV, you have to change and toggle.
Modes. Yeah.
Right, so you're changing your inputs, changing the source, whatever, it depends on what kind of model of TV you have, right? So with that in mind, let's come over and let's take a look at your general settings. So this is how you toggle between the board, which is embedded player. This itself is a computer, a standalone. You could have nothing connected and still instruct and drive and do things here, right? Okay, you also have, very quickly, if your Chromebook's connected, you're gonna go over there to select, okay? If you have things plugged into holes and you're not seeing the screen, try a different port, try a different outlet.
So
Try,
there's
you know,
no-
try a different option.
So there's no way to connect the Chromebook without the cords?
Yep, Google Cast, she's gonna show you.
Uh,
I'm gonna show you how to mirror,
I'll hold
yes.
the rest of my questions for later.
No, don't do that. Don't do that. We like that.
We like active participants. No, we embrace you very much. Thank you. All right. So with that, the other thing, just to show you, if you want to pull up the settings, again, the settings window, you can push the gear on the button, okay? Or you take 2 fingers, come over here to the middle where the ViewSonic logo is, and you can tap here and swipe up and access it that way. All right? So toggling between embedded players, the board, Chromebook, and your desktop. So you have 3 separate computers that you can use for instruction now. Hopefully that's not my all right, so the last button to show you is the house, which is home. So to take you to the board home screen, think that. There's your point of reference. So this is the embedded player, okay? And Stephanie's going to be taking you through this in just a second. All right, what I would like to do right now, if you'll go ahead and you've got your Chromebooks up, open up Google Chrome if you haven't already done so. Very quickly, while we're here on the desktop, I want to point out a couple things. So this is the course that is housed in your district's LMS. And I believe that ours is labeled a little differently, but the content is the same. So look at the content. And I believe yours is called Ignite You 2018-19. So within that, you should have an interactive flat panel course. And then under resources, you should see all module 1 and 2. So module 1 is the online 1-hour prerequisite course. Module 2 is what we're doing now, and there's some resources within this. I'm getting ready to take you into the page that says casting, and that's where you're going to be able to come back later and access these Google Cast install directions. So I'm pointing that out now. There's also some videos if you wanted to take a look at those, more in-depth, but for time purposes, I'm just going to point this out, and I am going to take you over to Google Cast very quickly and help you set that piece up. At the beginning, we referenced, or maybe we didn't, I'm not sure at this point in the day, but you will receive this PowerPoint that we are running through, and it will be placed in this trainer's information folder. So that's where it's going to go under Module 2 in the yellow folder. Okay? Below that is the survey, the evaluation feedback for this training. We would love to know your thoughts, what you liked, what we can improve on, what you'd like to see more of in the future. Okay? So now let's get into the fun stuff, because this is the part of the training I love. All right, so first things first. Let's talk about your board actually comes with something called VCast. Okay, while VCast is a wonderful application, the problem with it is that it doesn't quite have the same security level that enforces the teacher to ask the student to request permission to share their screen, and thus in return, the teacher then has to grant it. So this Gcast is something that allows for the sharing of what's on one screen in a Chrome web browser to another Chrome web browser. So this can actually take place from a student's device to a teacher's device, a teacher to a teacher. I'm going to show you how to set it all up, but it's basically mirroring your screen and sharing it. So why is somebody who's here to talk interactive flat panel talking about sharing Chromebook screens? Well, because classroom management wise, let's think about this for a second. So your students have worked tirelessly, they're ready to finally present, and now you're going to ask each of them individually to come up one by one and connect their devices to the board and then hope for the best. And so for time's sake in your classroom, wouldn't it be nice if you could just connect your Chromebook to the board so that when they're ready to share, or you're having maybe peer review, whole class peer review sessions, etc., you put your Chromebook and connect it, and then they can individually request to share their screen with yours. So then you're connected, and here you don't have to do all this cables in and out and switching out. Does that kind of make sense? I know it's a little bit new. Okay, well, we're moving through it. All right, so this can actually work whether you're on a Chromebook or you're using a Chrome web browser on another device. So you have to just, the whole key to make this work is that it is a Chrome web extension. Can't be in Safari, can't be in Explorer or Edge or Firefox or any of the other ones I'm not really sure exist at this point. But with that said, this also allows for, there's no, it doesn't require wireless from the board. It also will not allow your students, VCast will allow your students to take over the board screen without your permission. So this is putting you into a much better teaching and learning classroom management scenario. I'm not saying that there aren't great applications with using other resources. This is the one, though, that I think is going to give you a little bit more security. All right, so with that said, in a Chrome web browser, if you're logged into your Chromebook, you're already logged into Chrome. If you're on the Windows desktop, because see, look right here, I'm not on a Chromebook, and I've got the Chrome extension up here. So this is called Google Cast for Education, and if you log into Chrome, your district has actually pushed this out, so you should automatically see this if you log into a Chrome web browser. So, does everybody see this? All right, so let's go and let's set this up. So you're setting up your teacher device so that you're the person in control when it comes to screen sharing. So you're going to click on the green Google Cast icon, and you'll see the screen right here. So in the settings screen, you are naming your device, your Chromebook, as the receiving device. So if I were a teacher in this school, I might put something like Miss Kohut's Chromebook, or Miss Kohut, or Miss Kohut Miss Kohut Media Center, if this was my classroom. All right, so those are options. Here's the cool part. You can change it later, it doesn't matter. Put something in for now, and then click on Save, and you will be taken to a screen that looks like this. So who has access? What information do you think is going to be going in here? I know it's Friday in the afternoon. Who's going to be sharing in most cases, classroom setting wise? There you go. All right. So here's the part that I'm okay with a big groan on, okay? Unfortunately, you will need to add in each student when they need to share their screen. So you're going to put in their email address. Now, let's think about this for a second. It's an email address, right? And this is right here on your Chromebook. So couldn't you, like, if you were getting this going, start with one class. Maybe you break the group up. We got group A. Who's going to be sharing out your presentation or your group work? Okay, over here. So you're only putting in 5 students, right? So on the fly, you can add these in. It doesn't have to be, you have to have them all in before this works. If a student wants to share their screen or requests to share their screen, they just have to be in your account, okay? Now, are there other ways to make that a faster, less tedious process? Yes, but this is what's available, and this is giving us the access and the security that we like. So moving forward, let's talk. So you're going to put the student's email address. You have an option here. Can request and can present. You want to choose the can request option versus can present because that's what gives you the control. So on a student device, how they're going to request to access. They don't have to have a Chrome extension. You don't have to worry if they have this or if they're logged in or any of this stuff. All they have to do is in a Chrome web browser, see the 3 dots? So this is my address bar here. Go to the 3 dots, and this is your settings menu in Chrome. Underneath print, see the word cast? That's what set them up so that they can then request. So at that point, that's what puts in, they will request, I would like to share my screen with the teacher. The teacher will get a notification here. So-and-so is requesting to share their screen. Are you okay with this? And you would grant them permission. This isn't, it sounds like 55 million steps, but once you get into the throw, it becomes a natural process. But that is how this whole thing works. Just know that it's my understanding the district ITSs, I believe, are going to be providing additional training. We do not have Google accounts within your domain, and I completely support and understand why, because that's a security risk. And so we're okay with that, and this works, and we've gotten you to a point. But, you know, definitely, if you need more, this document gives you everything. So if you're tech savvy and can follow screenshots, even if you're not, it's pretty easy to kind of go through the process. So when you leave today, how do I get back into this and how do I add my students and what's the next process? So very easily, open up Chrome, launch your Google Cast extension. You should now see this screen because you've set up your device already. So you're set. Now you may get a box until you add one student's email address that says who can have access, who can access. So once you put that in, but this is the home screen that you'll now see. Share is to add your students in at a later time. Settings is where you go if you want to edit. And by edit, I mean edit your receiver name. You don't like what you put, got married, got divorced, I don't judge, it's up to you, but it happens, right? So there you go. So we're good to go on casting? All right.
That was quick.
That was quick. I told you I can talk fast. I got moving and grooving. Okay, so now I'm going to hit the home button because I'm on the desktop, and Stephanie is going to show you everything you ever wanted to know about the embedded player, which is the board itself. So Stephanie? All right.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
Okay. Has anyone been on the embedded player yet? Yeah? Any questions on it before we get started?
I do have a
Yes.
question. My viewboard, are we gonna have access to my viewboard?
So we have brought that to DeKalb County's attention. You do have access to it, but right now they just want to have the panels, teach you on how to use them, and then possibly they may roll it out later. So that's yes and no? Maybe?
Well, I was able to get like a basic version of
It's nice. It's going to be something more equivalent to Active Inspire.
it. Yeah.
You also have access to Octopus, and that's another one. And like I said, they're in the works. I believe Elizabeth said they're in the works of trying to get it to you guys.
I want to give it in pieces. They want to throw all this new software and a board and so it's, I'm sure they'd be open to that. It just, you have to push out an executable file and have it installed. So it can't be used on
I think from
everyone.
a teacher perspective, we're so used to using Active Inspire
Mhm.
that having access to that, something that functions similar to it, just makes our classroom run a little bit more consistently to what it was in the past. And then when you get the new board, right?
I
You
agree.
can still use your Active Inspire files.
That was what I was going to say.
Sorry, I
yes.
didn't mean to steal your thunder.
Yeah.
No, that's because we
No, I'm
are
just
in the
saying
same level
the-
where we
The
were.
annotating perspective.
Remember, I have that fixed. I'll send you an email. There's a fix for that.
Or you can use Active Inspire?
Yeah, I use Active Inspire.
And really what we want to do is just have kids work on the board and be able to go over stuff, which is what kids cover do something else as well.
V-Board Lite.
Yeah, it's actually a better version of what you're using for that, as I'll show you.
But there's also a fix to that.
Okay.
I'll get your email and send it.
All right.
Any other questions before I get started? No? All right, let's. Not that long ago. First, guys, this is an embedded player. Just so you know, there's 16 gigs. So you have basically, like Elizabeth said, your desktop, your Chrome top, and you have this as a computer as well.
Custody of silence down to the counseling office for Joshua Baghdadi. Thank you.
So you can store files on this embedded player. I call it the embedded player. I'm going to click the gear or settings, and notice it's called the embedded player. So that's why I'm referencing it as that. So it's not, before where Promethean was driven by your desktop, now this is a standalone. The rest of our session will not include the desktop at all. We don't need it. So the days of your students bringing a thumb drive, presenting, plugging it into your desktop, and you not having your desktop for an hour is over. You can actually have them plug it in. I think Elizabeth pointed this out earlier, and they can present from there, or they can cast to your board as well. You still have access to your desktop. So some of the features I do want to talk about. Customization. This screen I think is nice, but if I press and hold, this is on an Android platform. So you're able to change your wallpapers to anything that maybe you're fancy. I personally like this one, but since it's so dark, I think this is one of my favorites. So you can change it to whatever wallpaper that you would like. You can also press and hold on the welcome. So you want to put your name. If you have below,